are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido. I hope I had the headphones the right way. And tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website. That is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. Support is never expected but always appreciated. And as there are expenses in making these shows, there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can share your experiences either through email, which is salsidoparanormal@gmail.com, or a form on the website. And I can either read those or have you on the show to talk about them with me at some point. You can also sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. And you can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts with and some other items with designs made by friends of the show. And then, of course, there is a PayPal link for one-time donations as well. And please follow friends of the show. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays whenever she's able to join me. Also, Ricky of the Anything Is Possible podcast, who does a paranormal-themed show on Sundays, which I co-host. And also Michael Strange, host of Trouble Minds Radio, which I frequently co-host there as well. And the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP, digital broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. And I think that takes care of all of that. So thank you all for listening here, and however you listen, or wherever you listen. And let me get to these two stories here, and we'll get started. And see how many we can get through today. So this first one says, one time when I was 9 years old, I was at my aunt's house, 2 hours away from home. Half of the people living in the street moved, leaving their big apartment complex to rot and decay. One night, it was a full moon, I was at the balcony, and my neighbor was on the other side. We kept talking, and eventually I saw a hand from the window of an opposing abandoned house. It was black and white and smoky, and it was waving at us. Just a hand that seemed to come from the ground. I thought I was imagining things until my neighbor said, "Did you see that?" And we immediately scrambled back inside. And that's where that one ends. These apparitions of just hands are not a super rare thing. I mean, they do happen here and there, either waving or just appearing in places. And I don't know what that means, if there's the rest of an apparition attached that people just aren't seeing. I'm not sure how that works. And of course, being a fan of the whole series, the whole Addams Family series, it makes me think of Thing, I believe is its name, which is a physical hand, but that's all it is, and I'm guessing there's a spirit attached to it. But it's fascinating that people see just hands here and there. I wonder if that's probably something I could probably look up at some point, I guess, what the inspiration was for that character in that whole franchise. Maybe they saw some account of some kind of experience someone had with just seeing a hand. It's always possible. But yeah, I'm not sure what those people saw. I'm glad that they had this person that made this post, and then their neighbor. They saw this, whatever this was, together, so they had validation, corroboration. that they were seeing what they were seeing. I don't know what to make of that, though, beyond just some intelligence possibly being there and waving to them. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, my house used to be haunted. I know that sounds stupid, but I'll explain my memory. This is the only one I personally remember vividly. My brothers and I used to sleep in our parents' bed when we were very young. One night, I must have been messing around or something, excuse me, and I ended up getting kicked out of the room as a punishment. I don't know why, but my first thought after realizing the door was locked was to walk down my hall. In my house, my parents' bedroom is at the end of a hallway with two doors going down the hall, and another door on the opposite end. I started checking the rooms, not sure why, and I looked into the first room on my left and saw nothing. I walked a little further, and the door on my right was shut, so I didn't even check. I got to the second door on the left and looked in. The room was pitch black, like it was just a void. And then a train drove past the doorway. It was like a real train, not a toy. It was dark, and it had a skull-like thing floating on the side, like a hologram. I didn't feel fear or anything negative until it finally passed. Once it fully passed the room, almost seemed to brighten slightly, and I could see objects in the room. The second it became normal again, I was filled with fear and panic. I sprinted back to my parents' room and banged on the door. My mom didn't open it, so I went into the bathroom right next to the door and grabbed a tube of toothpaste. I don't remember my exact thoughts, but I figured doing that would get my mom to open the door to see it, and I could get in. I don't remember anything else about that night, but I know it wasn't a dream because my mom remembered me crying once I got into the room and saying that I saw a train. I also know it wasn't a dream because there was still toothpaste residue on the door the next day. This is my first-hand experience, and that I remember vividly. My family has countless stories about stuff happening, too. So that's where that one ends. I don't know what the deal is with that kid in the toothpaste, but whatever. Because, kids will do odd things and whatever they can think of to do. But the train, seeing a train going by, I think that's the first time I've ever heard of that inside a building. Obviously, there have been accounts of people seeing ghost trains elsewhere, outdoors. But seeing one going by inside a building, and not only that, I don't think they said if they were on the first or the second floor, but it makes me wonder about some kind of I don't know, apparition that was created just to get the kids' attention, and it just whoever was able to do that had quite a lot of power, quite the imagination. I'm not sure what to make of that whole image, but it is fascinating. I wonder what the reason is for that, or if there's a history of a train going through that area that it was eventually removed, or that eventually stopped passing through that area. It's weird that they saw what looked like the image of a skull on the side of the train. So I don't know what that's about. I'm not doubting. I just have no idea what to make of that. But it is fascinating, and I'm not sure. I've never come across an account quite like that before, which is part of why I do this, is to find these experiences and to document them when I can, and then you never know when further down the line I'll find something similar. And, that's always amazing as well. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, 10 years ago, my grandmother passed away. 2 years ago, when my grandfather passed, I inherited my grandmother's grandfather clock that my grandfather bought for her as an anniversary gift in 1978. The clock had been stuck on 11:30 p.m. since I brought it into my house. I have never even hooked the pendulum back on. So as I was cleaning earlier in the day, I was thinking of her, the grandma, and said out loud how much I loved her and missed her, and asked her to give me a sign. Then I went out and came back home right around 11 that night. All was quiet. I made some tea, and then suddenly heard ticking. I have no other clocks. I went to the hallway, and sure enough, her old grandfather clock was ticking away, and it just kept going and going, and faster than it even should. It went past midnight in just a few minutes. I was in total disbelief. It hasn't made a sound in 2 years. So I said, "Thank you, Grandma, and I love you." And then that's where that one ends. I'm guessing it stopped at some point. That's fascinating. It sounds like she may have been manipulating the gears or whatever, however that clock ran, to make that happen, to make that sound, and to make the person there notice that it was moving. And it's funny because I feel like grandfather clocks, if I'm remembering right, they've been used in like suspense or horror kind of stories, especially like grandfather clocks, over the years, as like part of a major creepy setting in a place. In a lot of like, I don't know, I feel like maybe even more like TV or movies than anything else. I could be wrong in that, but I just seem to remember from somewhere that grandfather clocks were are sort of commonplace in paranormal and or horror kind of settings or stories. So, but that's fascinating because again, that's not happening here. It was the person wasn't terrified, and so yeah, that's an amazing one, especially without the pendulum. It makes me think that there was just probably, if it was the grandmother or whoever it was, however it happened, just the mechanical parts of that clock were being manipulated by some kind of energy that that may have given a sign to this person. So, moving on to the next one here. This one says, so I have had a few things happen, a couple that I can explain, several that I cannot. I need to start with, there is an urban legend that one of the trees I have is called the I tree, EYE tree. Several people have called this tree haunted. I have never seen any evidence other than it seemed sort of dead until I bought the farm, and it became very happy to be alive. That's fascinating. I am semi-neurodivergent and am probably skeptical to begin with. About 6 years ago, I heard a little girl reciting Bible verses. Still probably my own brain making stuff up. Today, I fixed my tractor and went into my old horse barn to get my pressure washer. While inside, I heard a door open and close. Then some footsteps. Big barn, nobody for at least 4 miles. Nobody else uses my barn. I then heard the footsteps turn around and walk away. Like stereo, my ears heard what they heard. The door opened and slammed closed. I rushed outside. All I had been doing was dragging my pressure washer outside, and when I came back in, my pressure washer was on the other side of the barn and pointing in a different direction as well. This sounds like I am a crazy person attempting to make up a story, but this is the stuff that happened to me today. And that's where that one ends. And no, I don't think it doesn't sound crazy. Sounds like there was some energy, some entity or one or more, I don't know. Something going on there for those sounds to happen. And then so I don't know how big a pressure washer is, but it's fascinating that it sounds like it was heavy if the person was having to drag it across the barn. And then for it to be across the room, for it to be across the room in like probably less than minutes, I don't know, that's a lot of energy, a lot of power. So I'm not sure what happened there. But yeah, that's a fascinating one. Sounds like it might be just an active place. No. Especially since they're there by themselves, that would make it easier to pick up on things because you don't have that thought in your mind. Well, if I heard a sound, it must be this other person that lives or works here because there's only one person there. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, everyone knows the Queen Mary is haunted, but there's a difference between reading about it and actually sleeping in it. I finally saved up enough money to book stateroom B340, the room they kept locked for 30 years because the activity was just too much. Let me tell you, it wasn't just creaky pipes. Around 3 a.m., the faucet in the bathroom turned on, full blast. I checked it before bed. It was bone dry. Then the rhythmic banging started. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the walls of the cabin. I've never felt a room go that cold, that fast. Has anyone else stayed in this room and had the door handle rattle while they were inside? I swear, someone was trying to get in. But when I checked the peephole, there was nothing there but the empty hallway. And that's where that one ends. Every once in a while, I'll find an account like this of different parts of the ship, not even the same areas. I have heard of that room that they talk about there. That's sort of one of the supposed hotspots for activity. And this is, of course, the Queen Mary in California. It's a massive boat and permanently docked. And so, yeah, it's amazing when I find these accounts of people that are just posting their experiences online. And you have to wonder, I mean, if that's what they're doing, if they're just random normal people, then even putting aside whatever you might hear on TV shows or on any of those things, it sounds like there might be something going on there. And that's what I love about doing this, is every once in a while I'll find a post about some place I've heard of, and it's just from someone that visited the place, and they'll have experiences there. So it's always really fascinating when I can find a post like that. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, My family visited Great Wolf Lodge in Traverse City, Michigan, for spring break. We stayed 2 nights in the kids' cabin. The first night, I woke up at 5 a.m. due to a loud popping noise coming from the hall. I laid awake for a few minutes listening. It stopped, and I got up to use the bathroom. As I got near the door, I heard footsteps walking slowly on the other side of the door. I looked through the peephole and saw nothing, and the noise stopped. I shrugged it off and went to walk away, but the steps started again. I stood listening and then looked out again. Nothing. So I went to the bathroom and back to bed. The next night I woke up again at 5 a.m. The closet light was on and too bright for me. I walked over to turn it off. As I flipped the switch, I looked over toward the room and saw a little girl, short dark hair, wearing shorts and a short-sleeved shirt, standing against the curtain, looking at me. The light went off, and she disappeared. I hurried back to the bed and tried hard not to think about it, and went back to sleep. In the morning, I did a web search on the place and found that others have experienced similar things in the kid cabin rooms. Anyone else experience something like this in Traverse City? In room 314, perhaps, in that Great Wolf Lodge? That's fascinating. It's another place I've heard of. I think I may have gone there once years ago for, not to stay over or anything like that, but just for I believe, if that's the place I'm thinking of, I may have been there with family when my dad's and my uncle's classic rock band were hired for a party there, I believe. I may be wrong on that, maybe somewhere else, but I was a kid at that point. Yeah, I'm curious about looking into that now, seeing what I can find about that place, because that's a big place, multiple buildings and everything. So, at least as far as I remember. But there's a lot of activity there. It doesn't surprise me that at the time the kid was able to go back to sleep. That happens so much. You think that there's no way you could ever get back to sleep after you've had this experience, or as you're having the experience, and then somehow you just, I don't know, the body or the mind or both sort of forces it to happen, and you do go to sleep. And if you look into these things enough, you'll find this is a really fairly common pattern. I've experienced it myself when I was a kid as well, because of things I saw that were basically in front of me, which meant I couldn't leave the room. So I just closed my eyes and tried to focus on going to sleep, and eventually I did. So it's really fascinating that that happened in that case. And I don't know how, again, that works, but if it's something to do with the energy, I do think in some cases it can be an effect that paranormal activity can have on people. But I do think it's, in large part, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more to do with our own self, our own, like I said, either body and or mind, somehow allowing us to shut down so that we're not frightened anymore of the experience. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.